Hey, this is Seagrove, and today I want to talk to you guys about etiquette. So, etiquette in Pokemon is pretty similar to etiquette in life. It's a set of rules that help you be respectful and kind and considerate to the people around you. General rules for etiquette is basically just respect, but there are two rules that I keep in my mind when I'm playing Pokemon. And the number one is don't be offended yourself. To some people, etiquette is very important, to some people, it's not. So just assume that to your opponent, in terms of how they treat you, that those things just aren't important to them. And it's better to just not get offended about it. And the second rule is sort of the opposite, which is assume that etiquette is important to your opponent and just be polite and considerate of them and their things while you play. And that's sort of selfless, I guess, but that's how you should be in general. Just be kind and considerate and try not to let yourself get upset easily about such things. So I'm just going to go through. I have a huge list, but in all reality, if you wrote down every little piece of information or every rule about etiquette, it would be dozens, if not hundreds, of items long. So I'm just going to go through a few of these, but if there's one that I left out that you think is important, just write it in the comments, and I know that a lot of the best rules and ideas and suggestions and guidelines are going to come from you guys in the comments below. So just check those out, and this is a good thing about which to have a conversation. So feel free to comment on comments, and I'll try to be active there as well. So the first rule is one that I'm not very good at, and that's stating your moves. When I get into my turn, sometimes I start doing things very quickly, and I'm not always saying what I'm doing. And especially for newer players, that can be really confusing. I was playing against a newer player one time, and it was her first tournament, and she just asked me to slow. She said, whoa, I don't know what you just did. And so I explained it, and I said, do you want to read this? Don't worry about time, just take your time. And I just slowed down because I wasn't being considerate, because she didn't know. It was her first time playing. And I'm over here like ultra balling and grabbing this and using the wonder tag and not stating it, just doing these things. And you should be stating it anyways, but it's definitely good for an opponent who's less experienced. Another thing is don't ask to take back moves. There are certain instances where I think it's okay to do that, but in general, just don't. And there's two reasons. Not two reasons, more two scenarios. You can either, if you ask your opponent that, they can either say yes or they can say no. And if they say no, they sort of become the bad guy, and it changes the atmosphere between the two of you. And if they say yes, they're helping you beat them by allowing you to break the rules to beat them. And not making a misplay is one of the things that separates two players when they sit down across from each other. So definitely don't ask that. I did that when I first started, and it's just really, really bad form because it's not considerate of the situation you're putting your opponent into. So don't do that. But there are a couple instances where I think it's okay. If you ever just drop a card, I think you just pick it up and not say anything. Or if you say Lysander and you put down Rowlet like way ahead of your bench beside your Pokemon or something like that, it's clear that you actually just grabbed the wrong card. So if you have a mechanical error like that, I think most people will let you just pick it up and do what you meant to do. But other than that, the only other time I think is if your opponent asks you if they can take something back and you allowed them to. I think it's appropriate for you to ask. But I have many times in tournaments allowed my opponent to take something back and then not been allowed when I asked the same opponent to take something back. And I think it's a good rule, not only here but in life. Just don't do things expecting that it will be reciprocated. If you want to do something nice for someone, that's awesome. You can do it, but don't expect them to return, to do that in return. So that's just the way life is, I think. But if you want to let them take it back, you can, but don't feel like you have to. It's a competition. You're trying to outplay your opponent, and if you're letting them correct their mistakes, that's sort of taking away from the competition. This is a competition. Don't feel bad about saying no if someone asks you if they can take something back. Number 3, ask to touch your opponent's things, and don't without asking. So, and going along with that, when you attack, don't put damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon. Let them do that. But if you want to look at your opponent's discard, you want to read a card, ask before you grab it. As the match goes on, you can sort of feel it out and see how they feel about it. If every time you ask, like, oh yeah, of course, and they may even say you don't need to ask, but at first you need to ask. Another thing going along with that is riffle shuffling your opponent's deck. Riffle shuffling is the best way to randomize, and while I might not riffle someone's deck if they don't riffle their own deck, I would just mash if that's what they're doing. But while that might be the case, riffle shuffling is the best way to shuffle. So I think it's more on the person who doesn't want to riffle. If they don't want to riffle, then maybe they should be playing in a tournament. I don't know if that's true, but you can't expect to go to a tournament and not have your opponent properly randomize your deck. And riffle shuffling is the best way to do that. So I think that's more on the other person. But again, be the one who is willing to accommodate and the one who's not going to be offended. So I think it's better if you're going to a tournament, you can't expect to not have your opponent riffle shuffle your deck, but you don't have to riffle shuffle your opponent's deck if they obviously care immensely about their cards. So you can just mash a bunch. If you feel like they're stacking or something, then I don't think you're ever wrong to riffle shuffle, but it might not be the best in that case. Anyways, maybe you disagree with me on that. Let me know in the comments. Shake hands with your opponent before the game, and you can do that after the game as well. I think it's good, but especially before the game, I think it's important. Sometimes people don't lose well, and so they might not want to shake hands or whatever, and that's fine. It's not fine, but it's the way that it is. So before a game, you want to shake hands with someone. Another thing you can do before a game is make small talk. Ask them, where are you from? How long have you been playing? Don't ask your opponent for their number or for a date. There's only so many girls who play in Masters, or women at this age who are playing in Masters. So I feel like they get asked way more often than they're comfortable with for their number or on a date or whatever, or just get hit on. Don't do that. You're here to play Pokemon. They're here to play Pokemon. They just want to play. If you build a relationship with them over a few tournaments, okay, that might be different, but it's just weird. I don't know. Leave the women alone. Let them play the game. Next thing is, don't do things that are unrelated to the game during the game. So obviously you can't be on your cell phone anyways, but don't do something that's like distracting you while your opponent is playing. First of all, you need to be focusing on what your opponent's doing to make sure they're not misplaying or whatever. But I mean, not misplaying, but doing something, making legal action or whatever. But don't talk to someone who's not your opponent. And if you're a spectator, you shouldn't be talking to a player. Really, I think you're supposed to not be in an area around the game, in the gaming area anyways. So you need to just respect the game and take a step back. Let the person play their game. I've even seen people, I had a friend who was playing in a tournament and someone else was coaching his opponent while they were playing. So that's obviously bad form. But another thing is be gracious in victory and in defeat. So if you win or lose, be gracious. So if you win, just consider that your opponent just lost, and they may have just lost a chance at money, a chance at CP. They may just feel like they lost their whole day. So just be considerate of that. And a lot of times after people win, they want to tell a story or brag or whatever. Oh, this was prize, so I had to do this and this and this, but I ended up making it work, and that's how I got that last knockout. And that probably doesn't feel good for your opponent. But if you are the opponent, well, they should be being considerate of you. It's best to rejoice with them, even though it feels bad for you. Like, they should be more considerate of you, but you can still be kind to them and be happy for them, even while you're not happy for yourself. Present your deck to be cut or shuffled after every time you shuffle. Don't make your opponent reach over and grab it after you shuffle. It just looks shady anyways. If your opponent needs to do multiple searches, don't make them shuffle. If they're saying, I'm going to go back in, so I'm not going to shuffle. Okay, don't make them. That's just, really, it's manipulating the time by using the letter of the rules. So if you think here is a little bit intimidating, I think, when people think their opponent might be cheating. So I was playing against someone one time who was very intensely looking at their deck while they shuffled. And I didn't say anything, and I wish I had. Especially, there were times when his deck was tilted, he could see what the bottom cards were, and I would just shuffle his deck afterwards. And I think I wish I had been just upfront and clear with him and just said, the first time, if you see something like that happening, you can just say, hey, please make sure that you can't see your cards while you're shuffling. So you're not accusing them of anything, you're just saying you shouldn't be able to see your cards. You're letting them know that it seems like an issue to you. And that shouldn't be offensive to someone if they aren't cheating. So that's the first thing. And then if it continues, you can call a judge. Or if you think your opponent is slow playing, for instance, the first time you can say, this is what I do. If they're constantly taking, 15 to 20 seconds to do an action, I will say, hey, can we make sure we're keeping pace? And that just you're putting yourself with them. You're not saying it's just you. You're saying we need to be keeping pace because you're playing the game together. And then if it happens again, depending on how big of a gap it is between the last time it seemed to be happening, I'll say the same thing if it's been a while. But if it's only been a couple turns, I'll just call a judge and say to the judge, hey, can you just watch and make sure we're keeping pace? And it's the same thing. The other way where people slow play is when they just take a really long time on one action. And if someone is consistently taking 5 seconds per action, and then they take one action that's 30 seconds, that's fine. Let them do that. But if they are taking 30 seconds every action, or not every action, but maybe 2 or 3 actions in a turn, or if one action gets to be like 45 seconds, that is too long. So what I'll do, and what I plan to do and what I actually do are usually different. What I plan to do is I wait, and then when an action starts to seem really long, I'll count to 15 and then say something. But that's what I plan on doing. But what I actually end up doing usually is I wait till an action seems really long, and if they've been playing at a fine pace the whole time, I'll count to 15, and at the end of 15, I feel bad because they've been playing. I don't want to say something because they've been playing at a good pace the whole time. I'll count to 15 again, and then after that, either way. And if you want to just do it once, just wait until it seems like it's been. Once you notice it's been long, you want to count to 15 then, and then say, "I'm gonna have to ask for an action." I think is a great way of saying that you're not accusing them of anything. You're just saying you need to take an action, and that's fine. So there's just good ways of saying things when you need to confront someone, but you want to be kind about it and respectful and use proper etiquette. So another thing is always be respectful to the judges, and you can always call a judge. And then if you disagree with the judge, you can call the head judge. And don't feel bad about doing that. But be kind to the judges. They're there to help you and help the event run well. And then the last thing is take a shower and put on deodorant, because you all smell like really, really bad. So make sure you're doing that. That's good etiquette, because it's awful, especially when you have people in a big group and then someone just smells terrible. It's not fun. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Again, put your comments down below. I'm sure there are tons of things I missed, and I'll be responding. Hopefully, we can have a conversation there. Also, check out Flipside Gaming. Go to flipsidegaming.com and you can buy singles and such. And you can use the discount code Seagrove in all caps, just capital SEAGROVE, all caps. And you can get 10% off. It's cheaper than TCG Player, which is where I used to be buying my cards before I found Flipside. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day.